at Bimini tomorrow. It is the 14th of September 2022, and I'm going to be talking about the happenings of the last couple of days. So if you do have any questions, my partner Matthew will read them to me. He's laughing because I called him Matthew.
Matthew!
Right, we need to be solemn. So, I've made some notes of things that have happened over the past couple of days, and the first thing that I want to talk about is the Vigil of the Princes. Now, the Vigil of the Princes is a ceremony that does date back to Queen Victoria, and we did see a Vigil of the Princes at the Queen Mother's lying in state, where we saw her grandchildren standing on either corner of her coffin. And we did see an example of this at St Giles Cathedral. Shortly after the Queen's body was moved from the Palace of Holyrood House to St Giles Cathedral, we saw the Queen's children, including Princess Anne, who was dressed in full military uniform, paying their respects to their mother. And they were standing either side of her coffin. Some of them had their heads bowed with their eyes open, some closed their eyes, and that lasted for around 10 minutes. So that was really nice to see that they got a chance to pay their respects doing the Vigil of the Princes at St Giles. But that is kind of old news, because shortly overnight the body rested at St Giles, and then the Queen's body was due to make its return to London. Now, as per Queen Elizabeth's instructions and wishes, Princess Anne has had a prominent role in life after the Queen's passing. Princess Anne has accompanied the Queen's body, I think it was 180 something, possibly more, mile journey back to London. So we saw a few car processions, and the Queen's body was put aboard an RAF carrier, and that arrived back in London Northolt. So shortly after then, there was it was covered on TV. You'll probably be able to find clips of that on the news as well. The Queen's body was borne from the RAF carrier by bearers, and it was put into a state hearse to make its return to Buckingham Palace, where the body rested overnight in the Bow Room. And then obviously today we have had the gun carriage procession to Westminster, the Palace of Westminster, Westminster Hall. So the Palace of Westminster is where you see the politicians in the UK doing all of their debating. We have the House of Lords, we have the House of Commons, and there is also Westminster Hall. I have been there myself from when I worked at a school. We did a school trip, and in fact there is a vlog, I think it's on this channel. Unfortunately my laptop isn't working, so I can't link it, but if you search Royal Reviewer, Palace of Westminster or something of that nature, it should come up. I did actually walk and film in Westminster Hall, so you should be able to see that. So I have been there, so I know the scale of the room. It is also where some big events happen. The Queen has presided over many lunches and dinners in Westminster Hall because of its size and its scale. Sometimes it is a little bit more suitable for hosting dignitaries on certain occasions. Do we have any questions at the moment?
Yes. Do we know who fainted when the coffin had been placed, and are they okay?
No. Please bear in mind, I am at sea. I am in the Bahamas. I have had access to news reports. I have had access to BBC broadcasting on the telly, but I haven't seen anything about anybody collapsing or fainting. No, tell a lie. I think there was one of the guards. I think it was at St Giles. I think one of the guards was said to have fainted shortly after the Queen's body had left. I haven't heard anything about that since, but I would imagine that everything's okay. Probably was just very hot. When you're wearing full military uniform, things can get very hot. We see this typically at Trooping the Colour in the summer. Normally the Queen's birthday parade, now set to be the King's birthday parade. Of of course, Charles will now have 2 birthday celebrations, like the Queen did. Normally in the heat, in the full military uniform, it can just get hot. So I imagine that is what happened, but I haven't heard anything else. And if you've heard of anyone else fainting, I most definitely haven't heard of that. Do we have any other questions?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. So, alongside this, Charles has been carrying on, King Charles III has now been carrying on his tour of the United Kingdom. He was I believe it was yesterday, the time difference is quite confusing here. I believe it was yesterday, he was in Northern Ireland. Of course, he's been doing a tour of the United Kingdom. So he's been carrying on his kingly duties, and there was one very interesting moment that did, it certainly made some news, where he's been having trouble with his pens, and the ink has been running. I don't know who's supplying the pens. Whoever it is needs to have their royal warrant removed, because it most certainly displeased King Charles, because he was actually filmed. In fact, I don't actually think he knew the cameras were on him, but he started to sign his name in the guest book, and the pen just started to, I mean, anyone who's used a fountain ink pen will know that one of the worst things is when you're trying to write something and the ink just splodges out. It's the most worst thing that could possibly happen in that moment. So the ink was running, and he sort of signed his name. He also got the date wrong. He asked his aide what date it was. Turns out it was the 13th, I do believe, and I think he'd written the 12th on the book. So he got that wrong. So I think he was a little bit displeased in himself that he'd actually got the date wrong, plus the ink running. Then Camilla picked up the pen, and she was like, I'm not using this, the ink, it's running everywhere. So she got out a new pen and signed her name. And then you heard Prince Charles in the background muttering about something about he hates this sort of stinking occasional thing where it goes wrong with the pen. So that was quite interesting to watch. The new king has been displeased. What would Queen Victoria say? Well, maybe King Charles will say. One was most certainly not amused at the pen. So top tip, royal aides, get better pens, or just use a biro. What's wrong with a biro? I don't know. So my next point that I am going to move on to is the gun carriage procession. I spoke about it briefly. So the gun carriage procession left Buckingham Palace at 2:22, and there has been much speculation as to what the significance of 2:22 time-wise is. And I think this is a really simple and easy one to decipher. Obviously, the gun carriage moves at a set pace. They are marching to the funeral march. It is a set pace. This will have been timed, and it takes precisely 38 minutes doing the funeral march to get from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall. Therefore, we have the leaving time of 2:22 to arrive at 3 p.m. precisely. Everything is military planned and timed and designed. So that is the significance of 2:22. There is nothing else, so don't listen to any kind of weird conspiracy theories. Do we have any questions?
Just someone saying that Matthew's a beautiful name, but Matt isn't as much.
Oh, well, I like Matthew, but I think only his mother calls him Matthew when he's in trouble.
Just saying, Andrew asked, we'll be back in the UK before Monday.
Yes. Yeah, I will be back in time for the funeral. Thank goodness for that. So again, the gun carriage procession pulled by horses. The Queen absolutely adores and loves horses, so I think that was rather fitting. And that ceremony, of course, as well, dates back to Queen Victoria and, of course, Princess Diana, who didn't have a state funeral. Princess Diana had a kind of hybrid state funeral. She was also pulled by a gun carriage. Okay, the royal procession. So, obviously, the gun carriage was followed by the Queen's children, Princess Anne, Charles, Edward, Andrew, and also 2 of her grandchildren, William and Harry. So William and Harry were kind of walking side by side. Harry and Andrew were not permitted to wear military uniform, and that is purely because of the rules and regulations regarding military uniform wearing when you're not currently serving in the military. So it makes no difference how long you've served, how many tours of duty you've done. If you have left the military, you are not permitted to wear your full military uniform on any occasion unless you are a working royal representing the country. So that's why the working royals were permitted to wear their uniform, and the non-working royals, i.e. Prince Harry, who chose to leave, Prince Andrew, who was forced to leave, they are not wearing uniform, but they are permitted to wear their medals. And of course, Prince Harry does have a rather large selection of medals, so he was very proudly displaying those, as was Prince Andrew. And Prince Harry and Prince Andrew were wearing mourning dress. Do we have any questions on that coming through?
Lauren asks, she knows she's a little bit ahead, but do you think the coronation will, when do you think the coronation will be?
I think the coronation most definitely will not be for at least 12 months, could be a year and a half.
I think I know the answer to that one.
What?
Why coronation won't be until next year. Because they've given us a public holiday for the Queen's funeral, and I don't think they want to give us another public holiday this year.
It's just the planning. It's literally the planning. It takes so long to plan, and we have not had, think about it, we have not had a coronation for 70 years. It's been such a long time, and although plans for the coronation are already there, it just takes a lot of organising to get things ready. So think about how long it would take a normal person to plan a wedding, and then you think of the coronation, all the dignitaries, the fallen dignitaries that have to come in, accommodation, everything has to be planned down to the very, very last detail, and it can take time. So 12 to kind of 16 months is roughly where we're looking at in terms of a funeral. There has been talk of whether King Charles will strip the service down to make it a bit quicker. It is a very long ceremony. Will he make it shorter? Will it be on the scale of the former queens? Of course, Westminster Abbey had extra rows, tiered rows of seats, specially built and installed. Will that happen? Will we just have the normal seats? We really don't know. We don't have any details on the coronation. That is looking way too far forward in the future for right now. Do we have any questions?
Will you be doing a live broadcast during the service?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to watch it because I have been away from the country whilst everything else has been going on. I think, like everyone else, I just want to sit down and watch it and just absorb it. In the same kind of way that I remember watching Princess Diana's funeral, because I was watching it really intently, everything is rather etched into my memory. So no, I think I'll go on and do a live chat after the funeral, and give my opinions and my reactions to it. But I don't think I'll be live streaming during, because also it could be a fairly long live stream as well.
Do you think Sarah Ferguson will be at the funeral?
I think she will accompany Andrew, yes. She was also, although she was an ex-member of the family, she still remained very, very close to the Queen. The Queen still liked Sarah, despite everything that had gone on with the toe-sucking and all the rest of it. Philip, I think, was a little bit more, hard line on Sarah, but I think the Queen was a lot more sympathetic to Sarah. And I actually think she still found her quite fun and quite refreshing and light. I mean, Sarah is. We saw her bouncing around. I think it was Eugenie's wedding, because obviously Beatrice's wedding was in private, but we saw her bouncing around, just being a ray of sunshine. And I think she still was a bit of a ray of sunshine for the Queen. So yes, I think she will be at the funeral. Do we have any other questions?
So it said the gun carriage began with King Edward VII, and another said King George V. Do you know which it was?
I think there was one for Victoria. I'm pretty sure Victoria had a gun carriage. I'm sure I've read somewhere or seen something somewhere in my head. I'm sure it's Queen Victoria. But I will check that out and I'll update you in the next live chat. So remind me to update you. I'll do some fact checking and make sure. Do we have any other questions?
Can you comment on how people have received Meghan during this period?
to be fair, I've heard reports that once in the crowd she was snubbed by one lady who sort of turned her head and didn't want to shake her hands or even look at Meghan. But I think that was sort of one person who publicly displayed that. Of course, one can never comment on how people are feeling inside. I mean, now is not the time, I don't think, to have any public displays of hate towards anybody. Like I've said in previous live chats, the death of somebody in a family, especially a family that has a bit of a feud going on, can be an occasion can be a unifying experience, or it can be one that pushes people further apart and can highlight differences. So far, despite what might be going on behind the scenes, what we have seen publicly that we can actually comment on is we've seen unification coming on. We've seen brothers walking side by side. We've seen cordiality, if that's even a word. We've seen members of the royal family being cordial towards each other. We haven't seen any public expressions of dislike or hate or whatever it might be, distrust, whatever, publicly at least. So regardless of what's going on behind the scenes, and I know what we see in front of the camera is not always what's going on behind the scenes, but what we are seeing publicly is one of unification rather than pushing further apart. And I think, if behind the scenes there was a real pushing apart, I don't think we would necessarily have seen the display of closeness that we have seen up until now. Do we have any further questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, I would like to comment on the Imperial state crown that was obviously placed above the Queen's head, and we also saw the orb and the sceptre. Now, the sceptre holds one of the largest diamonds in the world, and of course they are a symbol of monarchy, they are a symbol of power, and it is rather fitting that they are placed on the former monarch's coffin. And of course the Imperial state crown with all of its diamonds, the Black Prince's ruby, is placed on a cushion above where the Queen's head is, and of course the sceptre and the orb. And it's the same sceptre and orb that we see in one of the coronation portraits, the photographic portrait. You see the Queen holding the orb, you see the sceptre, and this is a symbol of monarchy dating back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So I thought that was, again, it's a bit of a weird occasion to say it's nice to see them in use, but we do see them on these kind of state occasions actually in use rather than just in the Tower of London where they have been. I also want to talk about Prince Harry's tribute. He did release a tribute to the media, which I think was very heartfelt and very touching. It wasn't particularly long. You can go and you can read it yourselves. But I think that was quite nice for Harry to release a statement. Now, Meghan has, I'm going to talk about some of the jewellery, because I know people like jewellery talk. Meghan has been wearing a pair of pearl earrings. Of course, the Queen famously wore her pearls, especially for day wear. So we saw Meghan wearing a pair of pearl earrings that were gifted to her at her wedding. So that was a nice touch and a mark from Meghan. I do wonder whether or not she brought them over initially, or whether they had been stored at Frogmore Cottage, or whether she'd actually had them sort of flown in, especially for the occasion. I don't know, but I would very much like to know. Also, mentioning Archie and Lilibet, we have no sign yet that they have come to the country. I'm still a little bit doubtful of whether they will be flown over. I think a funeral, children of that age, I don't think would probably go to a funeral of that scale. So, Archie and Lilibet may be better staying where they are, doing their own normal routines. But again, anything could happen, so we'll have to watch this space there. Catherine, the new Princess of Wales, has been seen wearing the Collingwood earrings, and of course these were gifted to Diana by Collingwood, the jewellers, for her wedding to Prince Charles when she became Princess of Wales. So again, Catherine is bringing out the nice pieces of jewellery, obviously to honour and mark Diana. But also she's been wearing a diamond pearl leaf brooch, which was formerly owned and worn by the Queen. Catherine has worn it before, so perhaps that was one of the pieces that was on long-term loan to Catherine when she was Duchess of Cambridge. And of course, Catherine will have access probably to more of the larger pieces now that she's Princess of Wales, and of course that will now be up to King Charles and the Queen Consort, Queen Camilla, to kind of distribute those jewels, maybe on long-term loan to Catherine as and when required for different events that she may be needing to attend. Do we have any questions on the jewellery?
No, not at the moment.
No. Camilla was also seen wearing like a little brooch on her black coat. That was also previously owned by the Queen. So Camilla, of course, giving another little nod to the Queen, and Camilla has worn that on previous occasions as well. So again, that could have been a piece that was on long-term loan. I don't think we've seen any of the Queen's jewels that were not on long-term loan being worn by other members of the family during the mourning period. But, you know, expect to see some of the Queen's pieces out and about once the Queen is put to rest and the mourning period is over. Any other questions?
No, nothing.
Okay. A little bit of a morbid topic of conversations, but I know people have been speculating on what the Queen will be wearing when she's actually buried, or rather interred, I should say, into the George VI Memorial Chapel. So, as we know, Angela Kelly is the Queen's dressmaker and very, very close confidant and friend. She did take on a very supportive role during the Queen's final years. I would expect more than likely that Angela Kelly has designed the Queen's funeral outfit. I imagine all in black. And there has been speculation that the Queen will be buried wearing one simple set of pearl earrings and possibly her gold wedding band, which contains Welsh gold from a nugget from the Clogau mines. I think we have a donation. Thank you so much.
Rebecca Nicole Vega has donated you $10.
Oh, thank you so much.
A shot as you work so hard.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support. Do we have any questions on the Queen's funeral outfit or anything?
None have come through yet.
Okay. I know Lauren's saying, must say I'm loving Camilla as Queen Consort. When the King is there chatting away, she just pops up. Yes, I have to say that, except just excluding the little ink incident, I think King Charles has done an amazing job with Camilla, Queen Camilla, by his side. And I know we were talking last night, and Matt did ask about the Queen Mother title, and that if Charles passed away, would Camilla become the Queen Mother? No, Camilla would become the Dowager Queen Consort. And the only reason really by Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother was given the Queen Mother title was because at the time of the previous Queen's father, King George VI, passing away, we actually had a period, although very, very short, where we had three queens at the same time. We had Queen Mary, who of course was the Queen to George V. We had Queen Elizabeth, who was consort to George VI, and we had the new Queen Elizabeth II. So for distinction between the two Queen Elizabeths, Queen Elizabeth, the former Queen Consort, was given the Queen Mother title. And of course, because Camilla is not the mother of any future monarch, she would never ever get the Queen Mother title. She would just be a Dowager Queen. Do we have any other comments and questions?
No.
Okay, so that leads us to the filing by of the public. So now the Queen's body has been basically handed over before the funeral for 4 days, where people, members of the public, can file past the coffin in Westminster Hall. I think we have another donation. Thank you, Leslie. $9.99. Thank you so much.
Me a shot.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Matt gets a shot too. Thank you. So going back to the public filing by, people can now get a chance to pay their respects to the monarch, and they are doing so in their droves. The coffin is expected to see up to 1 million people file past within the next 4 days, and the queue is already, the last time I looked, I think reaching 3 miles long, and it is expected to possibly take up to 35 hours of people queuing. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether I agree with a queue being 35 hours long. I think the Queen herself would not want people to put themselves at risk of literally standing in a queue for 35 hours. I don't think that is particularly healthy for anyone involved in the queue. And I'm sure the Red Cross, I think, has been noted as being, being able to hand people bottles of water. But just think about it. If you're joining the back of the queue for 38 hours, that's more than 24 hours. You are not going to be able to sleep, because a queue, by its very definition, is always moving. So you're going to have to be constantly alert for 24 hours. That sleep deprivation is not good. So I hope that the authorities perhaps will curb the queue at a suitable time, and perhaps there should be some sort of system put in place where people can put their name down to turn up at a certain time, then they can go off and then come back at a certain time, so that everyone will get a chance to file past the Queen's coffin. There is expected also to be another Vigil of the Princes, possibly involving Princes William and Harry. We're not sure quite at the moment when that will be. Again, it's probably expected that maybe on this occasion Prince Andrew may be allowed to wear military uniform. I'm not sure whether that will happen or not, whether that is just press talk, but we will find out very, very, very shortly whether or not that will be the case. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, Mandy C has asked that she's seen reports of the Princess of Wales wearing the Queen's triple rope of pearls. Do you think that's true?
There was a picture, a very grainy picture I saw of where Catherine was in the car and she was wearing, it looked to me more like a single strand of pearls. But I don't think that was the Queen's pearl. It could have been a gift from the Queen. It could have been pearls that perhaps Catherine hasn't worn previously, that the Queen has gifted from her own personal collection. The Queen has a vast collection of jewels, including a vast collection of pearls. So it could be that it was the Queen's pearls that was gifted prior to the Queen passing away that we haven't seen yet. It could also have been Princess Diana's pearls, because we haven't seen all of Princess Diana's jewels in use either by Meghan or by Catherine, the new Princess of Wales. Could also have been her own pearls. She could have, literally been gifted or bought pearls for maybe her own wedding, maybe from a foreign state. So I'm not entirely sure whether it was the Queen's pearls. We haven't had any official confirmation yet. Any other questions?
Just Lady Buckingham asking, when do we go home?
Oh, we've got one more day. Today we're at sea. Then we've got a day at Bimini on the beach club, and then we fly home the following day. Do we have any other questions?
Laurie likes your shirt.
Oh, thank you so much. This is what I've been wearing today. So I would also like to talk about the people filing by. I did see news clips of that. They were all taking their time to sort of, bow or curtsy, nod their head, pay their respects. Some people were making the sign of the cross. I'm not quite sure whether they'll continue to do that, because to get the speed on, they may literally just be made eventually to file past. But the initial people there were sort of bowing and taking a few seconds at least to pay their own personal respects and tributes to Her Majesty.
Diana Neal's asked if we're on our honeymoon.
No, we're not on a honeymoon. I still have my engagement ring, but there's no wedding band yet, so there we go. So just in case people were thinking we went away to get married. It would be nice to get married on a cruise ship, but no, I just have my engagement band on at the moment. Do we have any other questions?
Queen of Kingsbury said that they noticed there were no cameras in the hall.
In where? In the hall?
Yeah.
There were cameras in the hall because we watched some BBC footage of it. If you mean press photographers with the flashes, no, there was no mob. And if you looked from a certain angle on the BBC cameras, you can see that they've made a massive kind of stage platform where the cameras and any photographers will be. But I doubt there will be massive flash photography. It'll most likely be just TV crews. And if you look, it's very, very discreet because they've matched the staging to the colour of the Westminster Hall stone. So it's very discreet, but it is there. Oh, also, there was something I nearly forgot to tell you, my loves. Underneath the Royal Standard, which of course is the main Royal Standard now, people have been wondering what the coffin looks like or what it's made of. It is oak. We did have reports that the Queen's coffin is oak, but when they were returning the body, unloading it off the aircraft and putting it onto the state hearse, one of the military RAF people lifted up a bit of the Royal Standard, and I could see. I was there. I was like, "What colour is the coffin? What sort of oak is it?" It's not dark oak. It's a light oak coffin. I saw it with my own two eyes. I was up close to the screen. It's light oak. So there we go.
HM the King, I think, is actually in the queue by the looks of things.
Is he?
To see the coffin.
Oh, I mean, don't forget, there are other queues as well to sign books of condolence. So, could be in a queue to sign. Books of condolence are everywhere in the UK. Most major towns and cities will have a book of condolence. Plus, you can sign the online book of condolence. And I don't know if that still applies to overseas people, but try. Just go try.
But he has asked if there's been any mention of the Queen on the ship.
Yes, we're doing cruise vlogs, and I did video that in one of the main areas there is a massive screen, and there has been photographs of Her Majesty on display since she passed away.
Duchess of St Andrew is asking, when will the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace resume?
Possibly after the funeral, or maybe a few days when the actual official mourning period ends.
And Lisa Keller just wants to say you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. And unless we have any other really pertinent questions, I may have to leave it here. Do we have any other questions?
Queen of Kingsbury's hoped we've enjoyed the lovely state of Florida.
Oh, we have. I mean, from what we've seen, this cruise has been amazing, and we have filmed the entire, or everything we've done. We've filmed for our other channel, Elliot and Matt. So if you haven't seen that channel, just type in Elliot and Matt on YouTube and in the YouTube search, and you'll find our channel.
Yeah. Would we go to see the Queen's coffin if we were still back in the UK?
I don't think I personally feel comfortable, as I've said, joining a 35-hour queue. I don't think it's safe, and I personally don't think anybody should be permitted to stand in a queue for 35 hours. I don't think the Queen would have wanted anybody to have put themselves at risk. To be honest, you've got a perfectly good view on TV. I know they are live streaming the people filing past the coffin, so you can watch that. If you are in London and you want to do it, feel free. But personally, I think standing in a queue for 35 hours is tough.
And also, I don't think you've got the patience for it.
And Matt says I have not got the patience. I probably haven't got the patience. Personally.
Just maybe a private question, but 2 weeks, is she on ice?
Now, I was discussing this previously with Matt about the has she been embalmed? Now, obviously, most bodies before the funeral, before any lengthy period of time, will have been embalmed and will have been put into some kind of refrigeration process to obviously slow down the decomposition before a funeral. Now, we know that the Queen's body has not left Balmoral, and we've seen what has happened to the Queen's body since it has left Balmoral. So, there hasn't really been a time when the Queen's body could have been taken to somewhere to be properly embalmed, which leads to the question, has it been embalmed? We know that the coffins are always lead lined. Queen Victoria's body was not embalmed. I made a whole video on the Queen Victoria's funeral. including talk about the process of being embalmed. So it makes us wonder, has the Queen's body actually been embalmed? I haven't heard anywhere that it has, but I also haven't heard anywhere that it hasn't. Now, it is entirely possible that embalmers could have come into Balmoral to have performed the procedures actually at Balmoral. That is possible, but again, I haven't seen any evidence of that kind of operation coming in. Bearing in mind there have been reporters everywhere at Balmoral, so perhaps they would have seen anything, any equipment or anything coming in. So, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure whether or not the Queen's body has been embalmed. So I think we need to kind of wait and see if anyone does actually officially mention that. Or if you have seen anything anywhere, let me know.
Ellen's asked how you became so interested in the royal family.
I always have been. I'm gay. So I'm always been interested in queens, you know. No, I've just always been interested, and lots of people in my family have always been interested in the royal family as well. So it's just something that I've kind of picked up on, and I like myself, and I've continued into adulthood with.
We've also asked, did we do the paintings?
We did. This was part of our boozy bevs and painting class that we did. Bottomless champagne, people. And they let me loose with a paintbrush.
They did. Duchess S.A. Andrew says, congratulations, professional production crew, Matt. Thank you.
He's classed as noises off stage.
There was another question somewhere. Where was it?
By the way, thank you for tuning in and watching. I really do appreciate it.
Will the flowers on top of the casket be changed out?
Possibly, because obviously flowers do start to deteriorate. It seems like they are the same flowers that we've always seen. But it is possible that we may get a new bunch swapped over for the funeral, depending on how they last, I suppose. But I mean, normally flowers do start to normal funeral flowers, you know, a week, and they start to deteriorate really.
Oh, Stephanie Duque has donated $5.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm not sure if there's a comment with it. Is there a comment?
No comment with it, but
thank you so much.
Amber Gordon has asked, now that Camilla is queen, will her own children have a more public role?
No. No, it's not expected her children will have a more public role. They certainly won't have an official role because they are not of any sort of royal bloodline. Now, if Charles and Camilla would have had children, I mean, that's not going to happen now, not unless Camilla's not telling us anything. Is Camilla pregnant? At 72?
Oh,
No.
It's the beginning of the Parker
Camilla is 75. Charles is 72. So unless Camilla is pregnant at age 75, I don't think we're going to get any children who would ever have an official role from Charles and Camilla. But let's just, presume that they did have children. Those children would take their place in the line of succession if they were to have children.
Do you think Camilla's children might get titles?
No. No. The only people I think may be given titles perhaps when William is king is perhaps Mummy and Daddy Middleton may get an earldom.
Ooh. Rediscover Locations with Shabrona asks, they've seen the picture of George VI vault. Mm-hmm. The headstone on the floor has her parents written on it.
Yeah.
Will there be, and there's lots of room for Philip and the Queen's names. Are they going to be put in the same place?
Yes, they are going into the George VI Memorial Chapel. So where we saw, I did make a whole video on it, so go and check that out. But where we saw at Prince Philip's funeral, the coffin going down, being lowered into the floor, his body will be removed. That was only temporary. His body will be removed from there, and just a short distance away is the George VI Memorial Chapel, where George VI's coffin lies, the Queen Mother's coffin lies, and the ashes of Princess Margaret. She wanted a cremation, so that's why she has ashes. And then there are 2 spaces left, obviously for Philip's casket and of course the Queen's casket. So once we've had the state funeral, the Queen will be driven. I'm sure driven rather than flown to Windsor. And as soon as, the hearse goes through those private gates, they will shut and there will be a small private ceremony, a reinterment of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, alongside the Queen. And then that vault will be closed forever, unless there's any maintenance that needs to be done internally to it in due course. And it's expected that that stone will be engraved to include their names.
H.M. the King says he's heard that the Queen will go down with Philip after the funeral and they will be placed together.
Yes. Yeah. That was always the plan. But of course we didn't know how long it was going to be in between the Duke of Edinburgh's passing and the Queen's, and of course it hasn't been very long at all.
No. Will the Middletons get an earldom now that they're grandparents of the future heir?
I don't think they'll get one in Charles's reign. I mean, it's still possible. It is still possible, but I don't think so. I mean, technically now that, via marriage, Catherine is now the Princess of Wales, perhaps. But I'm thinking it'll be more under William that the Middletons might get an earldom. But never say never. Do we have any other questions?
Amber says we need to make a trip to show the vault in a few months.
If I go to Windsor Castle, now they're very, very strict on photography and videography in there. There's not a lot of places where you're allowed to take photos or video. So that could be one of those occasions. But I am very good at taking very stealthy video footage. So if I do get in there and it's there, I'll try and get a sneaky. Any other questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, so I think over obviously the next few days, all that's really going to be in the news is any more of King Charles's tour of the UK. And of course, we're going to see constant streams of people filing past the Queen's coffin and paying their respects. So I'm not sure whether I will be back tomorrow to do a live chat or whether it will be when I'm actually back off holiday. So unless anything drastic happens, you may probably see me the day before the funeral on Sunday. Do we have any other questions before I go?
Just how's the holiday?
Oh, holiday's amazing. If you've not been on a cruise, this is our first cruise. Go on one, especially a Virgin Voyages one. Amazing. And like I say, we will be posting our cruise vlogs on the other channel, Elliot and Matt. So, thank you for watching this live stream. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you found it helpful, like, subscribe, share on social media. And from us, aboard the Scarlet Lady, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.
Bye, guys.